I'm Alex Newman, and I write for the New American, and today I want to talk to you about the worst tax law you've probably never heard of. It's called FATCA. It's the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act. I know that's a mouthful, and it's designed to sound a lot like Fat Cat, right? Because that's how the limited marketing that was done. It was supposed to go after fat cats who have money overseas, right? This monstrosity was put into a jobs bill by the Democrats in Congress and Obama. And it was passed in 2010, and far from being a jobs bill, it was actually, at least the FATCA portion of it, was a jobs destruction bill. Now, this subject is actually very complicated. It could take hours to really explain in full detail everything that's going on here. So I encourage you to check out this copy of the New American magazine. You can also find these articles online, by the way. It's called The Dark Road, the Worst Tax Law You've Never Heard About, and then the other one is A New World Tax Regime. They're companion articles. They go together. So I'll give you a brief summary of what this does, and I encourage you to look into it deeper and to take action. The idea was, the government said, they would be able to collect an extra $1 billion per year, it was an estimate, in taxes if they passed this FATCA law. And in a very quick summary, what FATCA does is it transforms every bank and every financial institution on the planet into a spy service for the IRS. So if a bank in Nigeria has a U.S. customer, under FATCA, that bank in Nigeria has to report that U.S. customer to the IRS, and they have to report all the details of their accounts and transactions and whatever money they made and so on. So you can imagine that this was rather inconvenient for banks. And all over the world they had to do this. The threat was, if they don't comply, if they don't spy on all Americans and hand the data to the IRS, then the IRS will destroy them by putting a 30% withholding tax on all the money that they have that passes through the United States. And with the U.S. being the financial center of the world, that would basically devastate any bank with any kind of international operations. So a lot of the banks responded by simply dropping all their American customers. And I speak from experience here. I had all my foreign accounts shut down. I had foreign accounts as somebody who's lived overseas, and they were all shut down because the banks didn't want to handle this disaster called FATCA. So long story short, there's about 10 million Americans who live overseas. Most of these are poor, middle class, normal people like you and I, average, everyday Joes, missionaries. And for these 8 to 10 million Americans, after FATCA, life became almost impossible. Imagine trying to live your life without access to a bank account, without access to any financial services. You can't save, you can't have a checking account, you can't be a business partner with somebody who's local because the bank won't want to deal with you. You cannot have a mortgage, you cannot have a savings account, a retirement account. You can't do anything that you would associate with having a bank account in all these places where the banks have dropped Americans as customers because they don't want to comply with FATCA. So this turned the lives of millions of people upside down. Obviously, the real fat cats don't care. They'll just pay an extra few $1,000s to hire themselves a good accountant, and that'll be the end of that. But for the rest of us, this law has been absolutely devastating. Now, ironically, they're trying to blame the surge in citizenship renunciations on Donald Trump. Nothing could be further from the truth. The surge in citizenship renunciations has to do with FATCA. So in addition to destroying the lives of Americans overseas, and remember, this is all for $1 billion per year in increased revenue, according to the government's estimates. That's enough to run the government under optimal conditions for about a couple of hours, right? So they turned the world upside down. We're talking billions in compliance costs. They had to bully foreign governments all over the world to shred their privacy protections and their human rights legislation and their privacy laws so that this could be enforced, all for $1 billion a year estimated to run the government for a couple of hours. Now, on top of this, it actually served as the foundation for what I call GATCA, and it's not my term, but the Global Account Tax Compliance Act. And what this is a new world tax regime. Now, the Socialist International, the UN, the OECD, all these globalist, totalitarian-minded institutions have been pushing for this world tax regime for years without any success. But then Obama gave them this wonderful gift called FATCA that enabled them to do this at the global level. So this is very quickly morphing into a global tax regime. The Obama administration promised to share the financial data of people here in the United States, with foreign governments, with foreign dictators, with Vladimir Putin, believe it or not, you know, all the anti-Russia hysteria. They want to send all your private financial data to him. And then finally, last but not least, we have the citizenship-based taxation issue. So I'll give you a real quick summary, and I encourage you to look into this further. And what it is the U.S. government is one of only 2 in the entire world that tax their citizens no matter where they live. The other one is the tin pot dictator enslaving the people of Eritrea. You know, he likes to try to extort his victims overseas for money. Most of them don't pay because, you know, he's a 2-bit dictator who couldn't enforce his will overseas if he wanted to. And actually, ironically, the U.S. government voted to condemn the dictator of Eritrea for precisely this practice. And yet the U.S. government does it, almost unique in all the world. And this puts every American living overseas at a massive disadvantage over their competitors. Nobody wants to hire an American. Americans have to pay taxes in 2 places. So, you know, if an American moves to Australia, they pay tax to the Australian government and they pay tax to Uncle Sam. And even if they don't end up owing tax to Uncle Sam, they still have to file mountains of paperwork and spend thousands of dollars on accountants and lawyers and experts. So this has just been absolutely crippling. It has caused so many Americans overseas to have to return to the United States because they couldn't compete. And these Americans, you know, they're overseas representing America, giving a good image of America, selling American-made products in foreign markets, helping our exporters, creating jobs in the United States. So, I mean, this is just absolute lunacy piled on unconstitutional lunacy, and it needs to come to an end. So again, I encourage you to check out this issue of the magazine. Look it up online. It's The Dark Road to the Worst Tax Law That You've Never Heard of. And then we have the New World Tax Regime. Check it out and get in touch with your members of Congress, and stay tuned to thenewamerican.com for more updates on this important issue.